Okay, at this point, you should have a few of your pattern pieces. I think you'd see those in the last video. So this would be your upper. Okay, all of your windows should be cut on this, and your allowances added to the back, and your folded allowance added here, and your lasting allowance here to the bottom. Okay, here you should have your lining pattern, and you should also have your extra allowance added here. Okay, you should have your heel counter, and this piece is going to connect here when you make your pattern. So you should have these pieces, and you should have also your bottom plate template. If you have this, you really are just using tape, taping the bottom of the last, tracing this, and then taping and cutting this part out. Okay, so all of those pieces you should have. All right, you should have a heat erasing pen. These are really good for marking your pattern pieces. So when you're wanting to trace a pattern piece here onto your leather, you could use this pen to trace around it. Okay, once you trace around it with that pen, you can use a heat gun or a hair dryer. If you have that, you can see this white line over here. This is a heat erasing pen. So this is going to be able to just totally erase whenever I use the heat gun. All right, so I can show you an example of that. So once you have your piece traced out, after you're done and you want to erase marks, you can turn on your heating gun, okay, normal heating gun. And once you start to heat that heat erasing pen, you can see that that white line has totally erased. Okay, I like to make sure that I'm cutting all of my pieces in groups. And what I mean by that, if you have multiple upper pieces, I would cut all those first. And if you have multiple lining pieces, I would cut all of those in a group. So right now, this is a ballet flat. So what we're going to be cutting out is just the upper, and this is going to be one piece. So this is our upper, so we're going to cut this out. So I'll show you a good technique for cutting. All right, you're going to put your pattern piece down onto your leather, okay, put it there. And if you don't have weights, it's very important that you hold the piece very steady while you're tracing, and you're going to have to kind of walk your hand down while you're cutting to make sure that the piece doesn't move. Obviously, if it moves, you're going to be not getting an accurate tracing of the pattern piece you just created. So you want to make sure that that is accurate in your. So I'm just really taking my time and walking this around here. The next thing that you want to make sure that you're going to do is, I would say, for if this is the first time that you're really making, I would trace this line on the bottom, and this line is just showing your lasting allowance. It would show you exactly what you added to the bottom of your pattern, and that's what you're really going to need when you're lasting the first few times through, so you can get an idea. You don't have to continue to do that as you move forward. Okay, and then here we're going to mark our allowance in the back, and I'll make sure that this is lined up here. Okay, cool, in this part. And then you can go ahead and mark your folding allowance here at the top. And that's why I really like these pens, because I don't really have to worry about at the end of the process trying to get rid of silver pen marks or ballpoint pen marks at that point. Okay, cool. So once we have everything traced and you remove this, you can see that you have your full pattern traced on here. So you'll do that with each of your other pattern pieces. Typically, we would be using a different leather for the lining and a different leather for the upper, but right now in this situation, we're just going to keep it pretty basic and use the leather that you have for the lining and the upper. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and trace these. Mark my lines here. Okay, so we have that piece, and we're going to trace our last piece over here, and this is our heel counter. So let's go ahead and trace that. Okay. Okay, so at this point, you're going to go ahead and grab your blade for cutting, and you're going to go ahead and start to cut your pieces out. I'm just going to show you a technique on one of these for cutting, and then you can repeat those steps. Okay, what you're going to want to do is hold your piece, hold your leather, and make sure that it's not moving around so that you can get a really nice clear cut here. Cut, apply moderate pressure into your cutting mat to make sure that you're getting all the way through your piece. Okay, just take your time. Make your cuts. You don't really want to cut outside of the lines if you don't have to, because you're going to end up cutting into leather that you might be able to use for another cut. So here, we're really cutting into the pattern, and we're going to totally free this piece. Okay, so you should be able to remove each of your pieces that way, so go ahead and repeat that for the other steps. All right, one thing you'll notice that I do on my patterns is differentiate between the outside and the inside of the pattern. You can see that here I'll cut out a little notch on the inside, a very small notch. That notch is really just to indicate here that this is the inside of the pattern. Okay, and I cut that same notch out on the front so I can line up where the center line is on my pattern. Okay, so what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to flip my pattern over. So I'm looking at the flesh side of the leather. Okay, I'm going to take my pattern, put it here, and what I also want to do is trace my top line onto my upper pattern. Okay, and what I mean by that is you're going to want to use your pen again here and mark your lasting allowance through. Just make sure that your pieces line up. Okay, at this point, I'm going to switch over to one that I have prepared. So at this point, you can see that the lines from the pattern are marked here. This would be the area that we're going to fold over. So that edge will end up being folded like this. Okay, so let me move over to the one that I have prepared. So this one, you can see that this edge is already folded all the way around. You'll notice a few different things here. This white tape is our top line tape to help the pattern from stretching. And then you can see these tiny series of slits that are here in the front. So we're going to walk through how to prepare a nice folded edge.